Hey, everybody, and welcome to Mighty Fine Shindig, a Firefly podcast from Common Room Radio. I'm Liz Stevens.
I'm Sarah Kate Bazant.
And I'm Vinton Bain.
And I'm Alistair Stevens. Are you a lion?
Am I a lion?
What?
I don't think of myself as a lion. You might as well, though. I have a mighty roar.
I said alliance?
Oh, I thought...
No, I was...
That's weird.
I can't even get through it.
What is this episode?
Weirdest exchange.
Episode, though.
Weirdest exchange in all of Firefly?
In all of television history, perhaps?
I kind of love it.
Yeah, right?
But it's so weird.
I'm like, I don't understand. Doesn't make sense. Kind of love it.
Enjoyable, sure. Well, I kept on thinking the whole time, it's like proto-Ultron.
Yes.
That's
Jubal Early is
proto-Ultron.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
I love Ultron. But Ultron is like this strange, just birthed mechanical
Man. Yes.
person, yes, without a body. So it's very different, and it works in that way.
He's
This
like
is an
evil Jarvis.
actual human person who is just
Insane.
bonkers.
Well,
just
not
insane.
to, borrow a beat from Porch Club, but kind of.
So this week we're talking about the 14th and final episode of Firefly, the series, Objects in Space. This is the 14th and final episode of the series. Not final episode of the podcast. We will be doing Serenity, the movie,
That's
in 2 weeks. We're going to take a break in between doing this episode and the film. We'll talk about that more here at the end of the show. But let's go ahead and get into our breakdown of this very weird little episode.
Time for some thrilling heroics.
So this episode was written and directed by Joss Whedon himself.
You don't say. I never would have picked up on that.
And a funny note about this episode is that it was originally filmed and meant to be placed between war stories and trash, never to be capping the whole series.
Really?
And you can pick up on this by the fact that all of them seem really confused when Mal brings up the idea that River could be psychic, even though they've called her psychic in the show before, and they've talked about this.
Oh, okay.
It's
Makes a
because
little
this
more
was supposed
sense.
to introduce all of that after war stories, and it was supposed to come right after River shooting those people and the Kaylee story.
Oh, okay, sure.
And instead, when they knew they were getting canceled, Whedon decided that this actually sums up a lot of what he wanted the show to be and a lot of the ideas here, and so he thought it would be a good capstone. So he
I
decided to pick it as
personally
an ending.
disagree. You know what would have made a better ending? Heart of Gold.
Writers can do weird like that sometimes, though. They have this idea in their head of, the
has to go
themes
this
and the
particular
feelings and
way,
how
yeah.
they wanted people to perceive their show. And
Right.
this isn't
Yeah.
what we came to Firefly
Yeah.
for,
Well,
though.
If it had run 4 seasons, 5 seasons, Firefly might have been River's story. But
Sure.
in the 14
Right.
episodes that we have, it isn't.
No, not at all. It's absolutely like Mal's story. Like
Yeah.
Mal is Superman. Everybody else is everybody else in Superman.
That's right. And he's
Right.
basically incapacitated through this whole episode.
Yeah.
And then River's puppet, sort of. Why are we listening to River? Anyway, let's
It's
go
very
on.
confusing. Yes.
We'll get to all of that.
So, cold open, we zoom into Serenity and see River sleeping. Now, this is something that Whedon mentions in the commentary, that this zooming in through the ship, going through the levels.
literally
He does this
through the ship.
multiple times in this episode. And he says this isn't something he would normally do in the show. Because of the philosophy being discussed here, it felt right to him to go from the outside of a thing into the inside to see what it really means, and that
Sure.
just became a visual thing for him that he said he'd probably never use again had the show continued.
Yeah.
But it meant something
Oh.
in this episode to do.
To perceive the substance of a thing.
Right.
As Early was saying.
Oh, see, I didn't read it that way. To me, I read it as showing us into River's point of view, but it seemed like we only got that going, like working backwards, we could find it because she was seen as herself as the ship. So I thought it as
Yeah.
like tracking the
that-
neural pathways
that's-
of River, and then we saw her.
Yeah.
So
That's definitely a good
Interesting.
point, because Whedon does say that this episode is supposed to be mostly from River's point of view. We're supposed to be seeing everything through her eyes in this episode, so that definitely makes sense. We hear a jumble of voices because, of course, River is psychic. She's picking up on a ton of things.
Right.
And then everything almost goes silent before Jubal Early's voice comes in and says, "We're all just floating." And River wakes up, gets out, and goes and sees Kaylee and Simon being sweet to each other and telling stories about Simon graduating from medical school and becoming very inebriated.
right.
So we can add Hippocrates to the list of things that survived from Earth that won.
Yeah. But you gotta wonder, is it the same Hippocrates, or is it a new thing called Hippocrates? I don't know. There's no time.
Who can tell?
Although I do like when Simon says, "Can you picture me?"
Drink.
Up there? And Kaylee's like, naked? I'll have to conjure it up.
I really like this scene. I think they're super darling together. I love whenever Kaylee takes her foot and like pushes Simon's face away. People are weird about feet. I'm not
a
weird
little
about
weird
feet.
about that.
No.
Well, this is the thing. Had they had an established relationship and established intimacy, then I would think it was cute and sweet. But the fact that they still haven't actually expressed their feelings for each other.
Yeah.
They still haven't kissed. He later goes to touch her face, and you can see her whole body get ready for his touch. And yet, this with the feet and like they're so intimate here, it was weird for me to
I
have.
definitely prefer this over Kaylee's whining about him last week.
Okay, that is fair. Yes.
Right, particularly if this episode came in after War Stories, this would feel enormously sudden.
again, yeah.
I feel like I'm just gonna have to change my viewing order of Firefly next time.
I guess so, yeah.
Is there one of those names to it where you watch it through in the order that Whedon intended?
I don't know if there's a name.
Like
I've never come across one, but I'm sure there
wonder if
is.
anybody does.
We're going to call
That's a
it
discussion for next
this
time.
makes way better sense order.
Just don't watch it in the order aired either, because that doesn't make
Right.
sense
No,
either.
this
No
is the
sense.
Shindig
Missing
system.
episodes.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
great.
the Shindig system. That's exactly
Shindig
right.
order.
I like that.
We're gonna fix this series to where I don't walk out of it hating this show now.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh, Sarah.
it's bad.
well, we are understanding the flaws in the thing that we love as we're going through it, aren't we?
I just don't know if I love it anymore.
Oh, I still love it. Still love it.
Anyway, let's move on.
We get a really different perspective on Simon throughout this episode, and it's evident right here from this first scene. I love this version of Simon, but he's an entirely new character.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
This cool, under control, quippy Simon.
Yes.
Yes.
He's awesome, and I wish he'd been here for the rest of the series.
I agree. He's super great and also super new. And also, what happened to the waistcoats? Now I'm in a boy
Where are
band.
all of his waistcoats?
Alternatively, just shirtless, which
The
is fine.
waistcoats were draining his cool. That's the only possible
Absolutely.
explanation.
So is this just or everything that we're about to see? I mean, I know that we are going through River's POV, and because she's psychic and like having to deal with like all the conversations that people are having and also not having, is this just how River views people? Are we like so deep in her POV that she looks at Simon as this very cool, very quippy,
Yeah.
funny older brother who's
Sarah.
like super charming, and that's why he and Kaylee are so snuggly, because River knows that they're into one another, and this is just
But we see those sharp
like that.
transitions into River's POV when Simon says,
Right.
I could be
Right.
there
Drink.
now, or whatever
Drink.
it is that he's
Wasn't me that time, guys.
we get that sharp transition, which really works. So I'm not sure, but I like that explanation.
even that-
and I particularly like it with regard to Early. I really
Yeah.
like the idea that
Yeah.
he's fragmented in that way because we're seeing him from River's
Yeah.
perspective.
And
I do
we
like
also have
that.
to keep in mind that if this episode were to have aired earlier, this would have been them experimenting with Simon and going, "Oh, this is a new thing to his character. We're going to add on later." But it coming at the very end makes it feel even more off than it
right.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
as Alistair just pointed out, now River's coming past and she's not getting noticed at all. It's like she's not even in the room. And quickly, the atmosphere of everything changes as Simon abruptly looks at River, completely stone-faced, and says, "I would be there right now." And Kaylee's not laughing. She's just staring off as well. And you see that something has happened there. And of course, we'll know as you go on that these are psychic visions of some sort that River is picking up from people, whether it's what they mean to be saying in the moment or something that speaks to their personality or something that speaks to their history, as you'll see with Book possibly. It's unsure completely, but we're getting a bit of a reading off of them at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
So River freaks out a little bit from that, continues through as Simon and Kaylee go back to laughing like nothing ever happened.
And the music here is lovely and
Yes.
haunting, all as we see
Absolutely.
River walking through the ship.
And the cinematography too. There are these occasional shots where we get to leverage Summer Glau's talent as a dancer and
Yes, absolutely.
as a ballerina, because particularly the shot where she steps into the kitchen, where she steps into the scene with
Oh yeah.
Jane and
I
Book,
love that.
and she's almost suspended for just a second, just as
Yes.
she's stepping
Right.
over into the room. It's beautiful.
This is a big theme of this episode, is the way that River relates to the ship and
Yeah.
things around her. And it focuses heavily on her feet and instances like you were mentioning, with the camera zooming into her feet on the scenes. Like she'll come down the stairs and the camera will be right behind,
Yes,
showing
yes,
her feet as she touches everything. And the way that she just touches everything, and with her ballet training and the way she bends, we'll have a scene later where she bends over to look at a branch on the ground. And
Yes.
that's something that most people probably could never do in their lives.
Yeah.
Because she's classically trained that way. Joss Whedon took advantage of that and really liked the way that she touched and feels things. And it's going to be compared and contrasted with Jubal Early and the way that he comes through and starts touching the ship later as well.
And licking things.
licking.
And licking
We'll get to that.
things.
That was weird.
He's a broken man.
Yes.
You're not right, Jubal.
But River enters in, like we mentioned, the kitchen with Book and Jane talking
Yeah.
about Book's celibacy,
Right.
which is a funny little conversation for sure.
It
A lot.
is. What do you think of more or less intact?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, surely he was asking about castration, but
I
then
know,
he just
but he is
goes,
either intact or not. How is he more or less intact?
Well, I mean, I suppose if
I was thinking maybe circumcision was the thing he was talking about, because that's probably
More
not
or
as
less.
relevant in
All right.
space, and people probably don't hold to that as much anymore, and probably aren't doing it, but the religious people probably still would. I can see
Interesting.
that being
Sure.
a thing.
Okay, sure. That would take some of the weirdness out of that
Yeah.
exchange. All right.
Or Book's just making the joke, saying, yeah, more or less, I'm there. I just don't do anything with it.
Okay.
I don't know. It's hard to say, but that would be all I could read into it. So as River gets close to the men, again, the atmosphere changes abruptly. Mm-hmm. Jane gets real worried looking and says, I got stupid. The money was too good. And then she looks over at Book, and we see a real mean Book here.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't give half a hump if you're innocent or not. So where does that put you with this like evil looking
Right.
smile on his face?
Very sinister.
And from what I read in the book, that was supposed to be a hint toward his past again, that he had this more dark past. But we don't really fully get what that is or
Okay.
what that might mean here in our series.
And
All
again,
right.
coming in on the heels of War Stories, that would have been a nice development
Right.
for Book, because we've kind of been bouncing around a little in our depiction of him, and he was pretty much gone for the last, I don't know,
Yeah.
2-3 weeks. So
And just after War Stories, he was talking about
inconsistent.
the torture and all
Yeah.
of that. So then again, they go back to laughing as nothing ever happened. They don't notice River. I do like the exchange as she's walking out of the room where Jane says, St. Jane's got a nice ring to it. And Book says, I'm just trying to remember how many miracles you performed. And Jane says, I once hit a guy in the neck at 500 yards with a bent scope. Don't that count upstairs? Book says, it'll be taken into consideration. To which Jane replies, sounds kind of ominous. But River continues through the ship, seeing Wash and Zoe having a grand old time. And she starts psychically feeling their passion, and you get that lens blur that you usually only get in really passionate
Yeah.
moments of the show. And then she continues to go through the ship further.
And we've still got River moving.
Yes.
She's constantly in motion. We've
Right.
got really shallow depth of field. So as she's rocking
That little
backwards and
sway.
forwards, we're getting her coming in and out of focus, which is gorgeously done.
To me, this is the one that works best for
Oh,
me.
yeah.
And especially after we had heard that with the stripping of her amygdala, that she feels everything. She can't not.
Yeah.
So she had that physical, which even, I mean, anyone can feel a little bit, a hug or a touch when they see it from somebody else. But to see how much that she experienced everything that was around her actually helped me to understand her character a lot more.
And so she enters seeing Inara and Mal, and we see her feet coming down the stairs from that back. I love that camera angle,
Yes.
focusing in there. And Mal and Inara are talking business, but when she gets close to them, there's that jarring change, and Inara says, I'm a big girl, just tell me. And Mal says, none of it means a damn thing, just looking off.
what
in
is
the
going
distance.
on in this particular scene? Like, what is happening here?
Again,
This was, I mean, if this
Again, it's
episode
out
was
of order.
originally, yeah, if this episode was supposed to be coming in after War Stories, and now we're putting in these two things that are supposed to have come after Heart of Gold, or is it not? Are these supposed to be like prior to me being completely over their relationship and just done?
I don't think it's them. I don't think this is a moment about Mal and Inara. I'm a big girl, you can tell me. I mean, we've talked before about the ways in which we're foreshadowing Inara's illness. And I wonder if this is
Right.
connected to
But what
that.
is she supposed to be saying to Matt? Like, tell me what? Like, I'm a bit like,
No, I don't think she's talking to Mal. In the same way that Jane isn't talking to Book and Book isn't talking to Jane. They're having separate, distinct moments that
That's
River is
interesting.
happening to perceive. I think that this is...
Because she doesn't look at him at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
She
And
looks
Well,
right
no,
at him.
and
Mal in
if Mal-
particular
if-
is looking
if
off into the
River's-
distance.
yeah, if River's reading their minds, they're not going to be looking. I don't think it works for me.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that it works for me either, but I like
Right.
it better if they are saying things about themselves and their own
Right.
experience, particularly from Mal, because this is perilously close to an encapsulation of Mal's philosophy now in the wake of the rebellion.
Yes.
Nothing means a thing. He's stranded
how
and
sad.
adrift.
Yeah.
And that is a powerful thing. I don't like that in connection with Inara, but I like it very much as a study of where Mal is.
Yeah, I don't think that we have to read them as connecting to each other, because so far the people that have been talking haven't been saying the things about each other,
Right.
which we want to say it to Mal and Inara.
So then
because
who
there's something
was
there,
who was Book talking about?
book?
We're unaware.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we don't
think it's
know.
just a flashback from his past when he had all of these devious.
Because Jane would not have been saying that to Book, and
Right.
Simon would not have been saying that to
Well, I
Kaylee
assume that he
necessarily.
was
He'd been
reacting
saying
to
it
River.
but
Is there anything to the idea that Kaylee doesn't speak, that Kaylee doesn't get this little monologue directly to River
Yeah, I
because
wonder about
Kaylee
that.
doesn't have a distinction between her internal and external voices? If Kaylee feels a thing, she says a thing.
Oh, I
That's
like
true. I like
that.
that.
And that they're the
Well,
closest.
that makes sense.
River and Kaylee are the closest.
Yeah.
I like that very much. Yeah.
So, River continues through. A little more hectic. You hear this rushing sound around her, and she's down in the cargo bay. She sees the stick. She leans down with that great pose, and it zooms out to show you the whole cargo bay is covered in leaves and branches, and she picks up the
Gorgeous
branch,
shot.
holding it like a gun, and says, "It's just an object. It doesn't mean what you think." And with a rush, we come back to reality. The crew is around her freaking out. They're saying, "Give me the gun, give me the gun." And Mal grabs the gun and realizes that the safety was off. It was fully loaded. And asks Simon, does she understand what she was doing? And River says she understands. She doesn't comprehend.
Yes.
Which I like.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That's a good question. And we don't necessarily know, I suppose. I think, though, that it does show us that River knows that she's broken, I think, is basically what it's telling us. That
Well, and we learned that
she's
in
starting
Safe.
right,
Yeah.
but that she's starting to try and discern what is real and what is in her head, maybe, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why she's realizing when she can't figure it out, when she doesn't realize why the gun is dangerous and why it's not a stick and whatever else, that's when she makes the decision. Maybe, but it at least helps lead her to the decision that she's going to have to leave to protect everyone from herself because she's dangerous and can't be trusted.
Okay.
And of course, in the commentary, Joss Whedon mentioned something about her picking up the stick. It doesn't look like a gun to her. She doesn't view it as a gun.
Right.
And so it takes away the meaning of the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
To what degree is the gun an object?
Right.
It's just an object. It's not in and of itself inherently dangerous. Even with the safety off, even fully loaded, the gun is not going to do anything. It's only dangerous in the hands of someone who would use it.
Right.
So then we're back to that Jubal Early line where he says, "Is the room still her room if it's empty?"
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
How do we imbue these objects with significance and with their own meaning, their own purpose? What is the substance of the thing itself? Thus, we return to objects in space.
Okay.
Which
This is an
there's a-
ambitious episode.
There's a ton of philosophical discussion had by Joss Whedon talking about how he came up with this episode in the commentary. I encourage you to go listen to it.
Yes.
I'm not going to repeat all of it. It's great, though.
It's also super Twin Peaks. Have you guys watched Twin Peaks?
Yeah.
No.
This is
Yeah.
this
I was
feels
watching
very
Twin Peaks
Lynchian to
while
me.
we were doing the live tweet last night because my wife was watching it with her brother and I was live tweeting from my iPad with the headphones in.
I was going to say you can't do both those things, but now I see.
Multitasker.
Not with that attitude.
Also, I like this line when Mal is trying to understand, and Simon goes into all this detail. He says, "If I want medical jargon, I'll talk to a doctor." And he goes, "You are talking to a doctor."
This is one of these moments in this episode where we suddenly shift the tone
Yeah.
into awesome, and this is Whedon dialogue at its
Right.
best. This is
Very Whedon.
fantastic, but it's so bouncy suddenly. I'm not sure what to make of that. The
Yeah,
way
I
that
feel
the
like
tone
this
shifts to
episode
comedy.
doesn't really know what it's trying to do. I don't know.
I do like River when she leaves saying it's getting very, very crowded. I like that feeling
Yeah.
from her being surrounded. There's too much psychic energy going on. She just
Well,
leaves.
I mean, gosh, can you imagine? I mean, like, she's in there, she's in the cargo, it's just her and all this stuff, and then suddenly everyone is there, everyone is shouting, people are
Sure.
shouting at each other, people are shouting at her, and it's just, I mean, how, like, gosh, it's tough to watch.
And we're about to reference that too with the ramp up to one of our famous Whedon irony cuts here.
Yes.
Yep. With Mal saying, because we're very much alone out here. And it zooms out to show Jubal Early following them in his ship.
Every time someone in a Whedon show says something declarative, I want to imagine that everyone else in the scene just looks around.
Don't do that,
I
don't
had to say it out loud.
It couldn't get much worse. No. We're going to cut to some people dying or something. So, this introduces us to Richard Brooks, Jubal Early, known for his roles as Paul Robinette, I would say that's how you pronounce that, in Law & Order from 1990 to 93. Patrick Patterson on the BET drama Being Mary Jane, and you can see some of his early acting as Lemonade in Teen Wolf, the film.
Wow.
Okay.
Huh.
He was also in the short-lived Tim Minear created Nathan Fillion starring show Drive, which ended up getting canceled pretty early, and I don't think it's
Yeah.
even available to be found anywhere.
yeah.
I don't think you can track that thing down.
But the bounty hunter Jubal Early was named after a Confederate general that Nathan Fillion actually is related to distantly. So that survived a bunch of battles and was known for surviving a lot of battles.
Yep.
And he was partly based off of Boba Fett, which Tim and Neer came up with that idea when talking to Joss Whedon. 'Cause Joss
He also
Whedon was
called him
Boba
Boba Fett.
and could never live that down. For being
And nor should he.
pronounce Boba Fett. Boba Fett.
But unfortunately, it's not Boba Fett or even Boba Fett that I see when I look at Jubal Early, particularly in his spacesuit. Uh-huh. Because Liz ruined this for me last night as we were watching Firefly. Who does he look like, Liz?
Ant-Man. Totally Ant-Man.
The costume designer said that they took things from a bunch of different areas, but one of them was even Daredevil.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the
Sure.
movie,
Oh,
so you see
sure.
like red
Yeah.
leather suit there. So I could see that. Yeah, superhero look.
Definitely.
He also has a side holster hanging off his leg because they wanted him to have a bit of connection to Mal, being a philosophic person himself, and what it would look like again if Mal went too far in a direction and became an insane person out there.
Oh, that's really
by himself,
interesting.
Instead of getting a crew and becoming a father.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm starting to understand this episode a little bit more. Keep going.
That's good. Okay. I want to say really quick that Jubal Early's ship and his theme are amazing. I like both of those things a lot.
Yeah.
And the ship bears some connection with Boba Fett, too. It's not
It
completely
looks very
unlike the
much
Slave
like
one.
the Slave
Oh.
one. I almost
Especially
said
when we see
Rogue
it
One
earlier.
again, but that is incorrect.
Yeah, especially when we saw it in an earlier episode when it was flying by.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
And they said in the ship design they wanted it to look like the old Buck Rogers comic strips. They wanted something like that to feel that real deep sci-fi fun feeling. We start our Act 1 here. Jubal is looking at these documents for the Tam siblings being wanted, and we cut to the inside of Serenity as Wash and Zoe talk. And I love this little discourse they have here. Little River getting more colorful by the moment. What'll she do next? And Zoe says, either blow us up or rub soup in our hair. And Wash says, I hope she does the soup thing. It's always a hoot and we don't die from it. Wash notices weird readings from Jubal's ship, but erroneously thinks that it's an error in the sensors. Mal and Jane enter. Mal is accusing Jane of having left the gun out, but Jane is denying it. And where did she get this gun
Thank
from?
Where did this gun
Where
come
did,
from?
though?
Where did this gun
Where?
come
If
from?
Jane didn't leave it out,
Never
which
resolved.
he probably did, though, right? I mean, he's
I don't
saying
think so.
he
I don't
didn't.
think
No,
so.
I think the clue is that the locker is supposed to be combination locked, and I presume that
She
River just
unlocked-
plucked
she
that
just knew
number
it. She did
out of
it.
someone's
Yeah.
head.
Oh, I like that too. No,
yeah,
I do
didn't
think
think
that,
about
that she snuck it. She got it without understanding that
Yes.
she went and got it and accessed it.
That's the only thing I can
Yeah.
Gosh, how terrible it must be to exist in a completely fractured reality
Yes.
where nothing
And this
lines
does
up or
explain.
makes sense.
It's a nightmare.
that explains what we've seen from River before, where she does something and we're like, why would she do that?
Yeah.
Because nothing is
reality
making
is
sense.
not
It's
the
all
same as ours.
completely,
Yes.
yeah. Gosh, it's like the movie Memento, but like you splice it into eighths
Oh, yeah.
and then
Yeah.
like slam it back together, even weirder.
Yeah.
That's a good movie.
So Jane strikes a nerve with Mal when he says that he didn't want River on the ship in the first place.
You want to have this conversation?
Even if Dad is mad at somebody, you don't tell them that that person doesn't belong in his family in his house. That's not how you do things. That's a good way to get Dad mad at you. Zoe asks where River is now. Mal says she's in her room. We're going to keep her locked in there, hopefully. And Wash questions the extremity of that. And Jane says she came out with a butcher knife.
Team Jane on this one. Probably not that extreme
Yeah.
to go ahead and, I mean, I give her food and rations and all that,
Yeah.
but
Well, sure. I mean, clearly she's dangerous. She just needs to. She needs to be. She needs to have someone with her all
yes,
the time,
at all the
right?
times.
And
yeah.
anyone,
and that's
anytime
supposed
that
to
we
be
can't-
Simon's job, but
But if Simon's off, like in the med bay
Flirting.
or whatever, or
Flirting with
flirting,
Kaylee, yes.
Whatever
We should
wacky
never
fun
have
thing they're doing.
instituted ship-wide flirt o'clock. That was a mistake.
That was a serious issue. Yeah, yeah.
I do like Zoe's response. I know she's unpredictable, but I don't think she'd harm anyone. And Jane says, butcher's knife. And she says, anyone we can't spare. I mean, as far as we know, the girl's never even picked up a gun. Enter Kaylee, saying that's not so.
I like the line from Zoe. I think it's funny. Zoe would never say that. That is
Yes.
a wash line.
That is a wash
That is
line.
a wash line.
Yeah.
true.
Well, maybe she's been joking with Wash up there for a while, and it's rubbed off on her a little bit, and then she just says it for Wash. So Kaylee enters and says that's not so. We cut to Jubal carefully exiting his ship down to the exterior of Serenity and listening to the crew inside. Back on board, the crew is gathered together to hear Kaylee's story, minus River, who we see shortly is underneath them in the room below, standing on the railing in one of the most perfect shots
It's
of any
such
show.
a cool shot.
Balancing
So much.
with her ear up toward the floor,
Yep.
listening to them.
Yeah.
Really, really gorgeous. I also love the music that we have for Jubal and then the music that we have when we see River down below. It's very Peter and the Wolf. Like, if you had your eyes closed, you would still
specifically
know.
talk about how they wanted the Peter and the Wolf.
The
thing,
oboe
but
is what did it, yeah.
the oboe, yep.
Wow.
Gotta love an oboe.
And that was a surprise to Joss Whedon that was brought in. He was like, "Oh yes, I love this." This is
Yeah.
great."
Yeah, good. Yeah, it works very well.
So they're discussing this, whether she's dangerous or not. And Kaylee talks about how she took down these men back in that previous episode. And I like Jane's line, well, she killed them with mathematics. That's it.
I mean, that's what my husband does every week. So, you know, that's his job.
Slayer.
And Kaylee says nobody could shoot like that. It's not even humanly possible. And
Yeah.
of course, Simon gets upset, so she's not a person anymore.
Right.
And River's hearing all of this. We then see that she's hearing all of this. And the crew discusses the idea of River being psychic. Mal brings up this idea, and while most everyone's hesitant to accept it, everyone does have like a, yeah, I've seen something.
Yeah.
So maybe this is true. I like
Gosh,
Jane-
this scene definitely makes way more sense immediately after War Stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I also want to call out when we're talking about Niska, the way that Zoe reaches
Yes.
out and
Yeah.
touches Wash, and then they just
have that
hold
note.
hands very quietly through the rest of the scene.
Yeah.
It's really lovely.
Beautifully done.
Yeah.
I agree.
And Jane says, "Are you saying she's a witch?
Yes, she has had Congress with the Beast.
She's in Congress?"
Brain even learned human speech. And then Anara gets very upset, and what she yells in Chinese here is, "Shut up, you inconsiderate schoolboys."
Right. And then Mal's like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
Which I like that little moment there where they're the two adults in the conversation. Like,
Mom and Dad.
Bring this back.
Inara is fierce in this little scene.
Yeah.
I do like that too. I do like that she is more of a motherly matron part of the ship, and she's like, "No, that is part of our family we're discussing,
Oh,
and I will protect her, even if it means from
Interesting.
your jokes or from whatever. This is a
Right.
serious
Even
matter."
if it's not that, I think that she might just be tired of nobody taking this seriously, like being aware of how serious this is, that we have this girl who is damaged, who is unpredictable, who can
Sure.
harm anyone on the ship, and we're sitting here making fun of Jane because he's a dummy.
Yeah.
There's also something of substance here too. I wonder to what degree Inara's skill as a companion is her ability to see to the heart of things, is her ability to see that substance.
Yeah.
She does this a little with Early later in the episode, where she apparently
she tries.
perceives very clearly something that is true of
Yeah.
him. And I wonder if this idea that River is not being seen, that River is not being perceived,
That's very good.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
is personally troublesome, personally offensive. To
Right.
Inara.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We don't really see Anara and River interact very much.
Just thinking that.
Yeah, that would have been really neat because Anara is supposed to be so good, like preternaturally gifted
Right.
at reading people, and to see her attempting to read River, who is like all over the place, just a child's like
Sure.
scribble crayon. is
Even
all
to
that's
see
going
her
on.
frustration with it.
Yeah, that would have
Yeah.
been really interesting and really cool to see.
We get this great dialogue here about Wash going psychic. That sounds like something out of science fiction.
We live in a spaceship, dear.
So? Jane, of course, unsettled by the thought of someone reading his mind and hearing his thoughts. Anara thinks everyone is unsettled by that idea.
She's not wrong.
And Simon explains she's just a kid. She just wants to be a kid. And Mal says, "I wish it was that simple." And then we get one of Liz's favorite lines here.
If wishes were horses, we'd all be eating steak. What?
Has anyone in this room eaten horse?
Yes.
I don't think so.
How was it, Alistair?
I had it when I was very young.
I was gonna
And
say.
yeah, when I was
might be
in
serious.
Belgium on vacation. And It was spiced and it was like pork. It was like
It's
all
long
right.
normal in some
Terribly,
other
yeah.
places.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, some places it's perfectly normal. So, like Europe.
Well, they
All
got
right.
horses aplenty out in space, apparently. So
That's true. They're everywhere.
Mal says he's not going to make a decision without thinking on it a long while, and he tells the crew they need to rest, and everyone gets up and starts to go their own ways. Kaylee and Simon talk in the hall, and even though Simon's being a bit of a dummy again, trying to shove his foot in his mouth by not giving her the assurance that she wants that there's something on this ship that is worth being
well,
here
he
for.
did just get told that his sister is not a human person.
Right.
He's a little distracted.
Yeah, that's true. Fair
Yeah.
point. Kaylee and him get inches away from kissing before Book walks in, not even noticing them, and says, good night, and keeps going. And at that point, they're broken up and they awkwardly say goodnight and goodbye to each other. Don't let the space bugs bite.
So awkward.
Don't let the space bugs bite?
Oh, Kaylee.
For me, I feel like they're dragging out the Simon and Kaylee thing too long, especially again after that super intimate moment on the couch where they're all snuggly.
Yeah.
And then they have
it doesn't make
It's
sense.
a little incongruent.
And again, like Kaylee has been like really frustrated with Simon for like the last 2 weeks after the cow fetus room and then everything that was going on in Heart of Gold. Like they should not be on these kind of like this scene is definitely like post War Stories, pre whatever came immediately after War Stories. What was it? Trash?
Yeah. They need a
Nailed it.
DTR is
Also,
what they need.
I believe awkward Kaylee, but I don't believe awkward romantic Kaylee. I believe in a Kaylee that is strong and takes what she wants when it comes to romance. And she wants that kiss. She's not going to make a joke
know what?
and walk
Exactly.
away. She's going to take that kiss.
That's a good
Right?
point. It seems like it. Although, again,
Except,
go ahead.
we've seen Kaylee do exactly that when it's about the sex, when it's about the physical connection. We haven't seen her
Right.
romantically engaged
Yeah,
with someone
good
the way that
point.
she
That's true.
potentially is with Simon.
Yeah, those are probably
I
two different
guess-
things in her mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we've seen that fairy tale side of Kaylee going all the way back to Shindig.
Yeah.
that's true.
That desire for
Yeah.
romance and the desire for, the theatricality of falling in love. That may be something that's significant to her.
Oh, no wonder she's so disappointed.
Aw.
He needs the waistcoats back again. A little less cool, a little more fairy tale Simon.
Right. And I like this small scene we get here where Mal is sitting at the table by himself. Everyone else has left, and he's just still thinking. And you can just tell it's a solemn moment for him of trying to make this decision that he doesn't want to have to make.
Yeah.
And he gets up, turns the lights off, goes to his room, and then we see Jubal entering the ship unnoticed. And we get our Act 2 break.
Do we not have sensors for this sort of thing? Hey, we're in space and the outer door just opened.
Yeah, well, we know
a
that there
good
are
call.
some sensors because they picked up his heat sensors. His heat signatures, at least.
Right.
But I'm assuming he's just really good at what he does. Maybe
Sure,
he's
disabled
turned off,
it.
disabled these things.
I like that.
That's my assumption.
Yeah, I mean,
don't
I
know.
guess we have to go with that. Otherwise, I mean, you got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful about what doors are opening and closing when you're in the dead vacuum of space.
So
is all
true.
I'm saying.
We come back into our Act 2. Jubal runs into Mal and the two fight, but Jubal is quick and apparently well trained. He knocks Mal out, catching him before he falls loudly into his room and then quietly dropping him and locks all the doors on the room. Whedon mentions in the commentary, and I think it's really worth looking at and examining here, that Jubal has listened to this crew a little bit before he came in, and it's to get a read off of everybody, and he knows how now to take out everybody. And he knows that Mal is a physical force to be dealt with, and he has to take him out first, and he has to take him out fast and physically. And he's going to then
Interesting.
methodically do that with each member of the crew that he does
Yeah.
come in contact with. And one of the best points, and we'll bring it up, I guess, when it comes up, or maybe a little bit more now, is when he comes into contact with Book, he takes him out the same exact way as Mal.
Right.
Which is fast and furious, knowing that this is a man of action and combat.
Oh.
And then when Simon says something about him being a shepherd, he says, "I ain't no shepherd."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's not the read he got off of him.
Oh,
Did
how
this fight
interesting.
sequence work for you guys?
No.
No, thank you.
It super didn't.
It's super comical to me and silly. I have trouble with it. It's very strange. I
Is it just the
love
way that
Nathan
it's
Fillion,
shot,
but he looks
or-
goofy.
Yeah, it's a really constrained space, and it's
Yeah.
shot in a really constrained way, too, which means that we're getting very short movements, very short shots,
Okay.
and it doesn't feel like it has any kind of weight or kineticism.
Right.
But in the
yeah.
bad way.
Okay.
Yes.
Got
Because
it.
we talked about that earlier with River moving through the ship and feeling as though
Yes.
she doesn't have weight and
Right.
kineticism, but that's purposeful. And
That's
there's
like
a grace to
ethereal
that.
and
Yeah.
flowy.
This feels goofy. Yeah.
It feels goofy. Yeah, goofy is the word I keep coming back to. And
like it needs like
it just
yakety
looks like-
sax playing over the back of it.
Now we need to do that on YouTube. It just looks like choreography.
Yeah. So Jubal goes down into the engine room and surprises Kaylee, revealing himself to be a
hate-
total creep. I
hate this
understand
whole scene.
existentialism,
I understand,
philosophic
hate it.
pondering, but being a creep is not a requirement for those
Not
things.
just
Nope.
a creep, but I
Don't
mean,
need it.
like there's just the worst, right? I hate all of it. I hate I don't like watching it. I don't like seeing it. Obviously, Jill Stady is doing an amazing
She
job
is
and is
so
brilliant
good.
and so
So
good.
good.
I hate this
Yeah.
with a fiery burning passion of a thousand suns.
I'm just so done.
I do
Yeah.
really like the line that he says where he says, "Maybe I've always been here." And this was a line that Whedon wrote for him to just say to Kaylee, almost as like suggesting it to her. But the way he read it, the way Brooks read it here, was saying it to himself, almost as if he believed it or was questioning himself, like, "Maybe I've always been here." And he looks off into the distance, like, "Is this true? Have I always been here?"
Right. And that was creepy enough. And the
Yeah.
Santa
Yeah.
Claus line,
yeah,
totally
we
creepy.
don't need any of the rape threats.
Do not need the rape threats.
Yeah.
I completely
No,
agree.
he's-
I
yeah.
don't like like taking away Kaylee's agency
No.
in this particular manner.
Right. I can't
not
even
like it.
verbalize what he says to her.
Yeah, and we don't
No,
need to.
it's-
Yeah,
Hate
we
using
can-
it as
Horrifying.
motivation for Simon.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just done with this
And-
trope. I'm done.
Yep.
But like you guys said, Jewel State here, her acting is so perfect.
she's
When
so
her
good.
voice breaks, when she has to repeat to him that the
one
no
she's
She's
one's
got the
Tear
single
coming-
tear.
Yeah, that no one's there for
can't
her.
handle.
No one can help her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it's so awful. And it hurts me. It makes me angry.
Yep.
Yep.
I
Painful
just-
to watch.
Yeah.
But it is like 3 times overwritten.
Yep.
You could
Yes.
accomplish everything that this scene needs to accomplish in a third of the time, and
For
without
sure,
going
yeah.
to the explicit rape threat.
Yeah.
Because, I'm exhausted
yeah.
by it at this point. It's lost all kind of dramatic impact. It's a
It's just
cheap
disgusting
narrative
now,
Cheap
right? It's
narrative
just-
It is.
makes me mad. Yep. Glad we're all on the same page, y'all.
Yeah,
We're
good.
on the same page.
Now, Jewel State said this was one of her favorite scenes to do because Whedon gave her complete permission to just lose it emotionally, go full in emotionally, which is something that you rarely get to do as an actor. And so she did. And that's why we get such a great performance out of her, is because she just let all of her emotions
Yeah.
go in this
Yeah.
scene.
She's very quietly giving, I think, one of the best performances in the entire episode.
Oh,
Between
absolutely.
Absolutely.
This and the scene that she gets when she's bound in the engine room later and River's talking to her, that breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like her brave face she's putting on. She's standing sternly, and then that single tear falls down her face as she's quivering and just losing it.
She's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyways, moving on. We can't talk about it all day.
That's right. We got a plane to catch, y'all.
So he ties her up and asks where River sleeps. We cut to Book hearing a noise, and like I mentioned, here Whedon pointed out that he takes down Book just the same way he would take down an ex-soldier Mal.
That
quickly
weird
and
flying
brutally.
leap, though, that also didn't work for me
Yeah.
very much. Still
This
wasn't
one works
comical.
better for me.
It
Like
does.
Jubal's hiding up in the dark, waiting for Book
Sure.
to come up the stairs, and then just
Right.
and then getting him like right in the chest. That works way better.
Okay.
Whedon mentioned that he actually wrote a lot of this episode on the ship, like on the sets, and he would walk through and see how Jubal would move through, and so he
that's
did a lot of that
cool.
himself,
Yeah.
figuring out how he
Yeah,
would move through the
he
ship.
did the same thing with River as well, like figuring out like where she would be at, what she would be, touching, and where like the direction she would be moving. Yeah.
And he tells a fun story about meeting a security guard. Check out the commentary. I'm not going to repeat it. So we cut to Simon waking up and running into Jubal as he's trying to check on his sister. After a small struggle, Jubal holds Simon at gunpoint, and we get that weird "I'm a lion" dialogue.
Which is so weird. And weird Simon, where he's just totally unimpressed with Jubal Early.
Yep.
I'd rather die standing. He's cool as a cucumber.
so
He's
brave.
shirtless.
He is shirtless. He's just the
It's like,
complete
here's the
badass
thing.
Simon. Like,
if
who's
Simon
this guy?
is wearing a waistcoat, then he's too stuffy and just basically completely useless. If he's wearing one of his like weird dad sweaters, then
Boy
he's
band is what
cool.
I think,
Yeah,
but
boy
yeah.
band sweaters. He's cool and flirty and like, but I mean, like,
Is he
still kind
even
of
cool?
Well, I mean, like he's chill and
Sure.
flirty and like a little more relaxed. When he's shirtless,
Or in his pajamas?
suddenly he's a badass.
Okay, so Simon's badass level is inversely
Directly-
proportional
yes, yes.
to the number of layers that he is wearing.
Precisely. Yeah.
Never bundle him up for winter wear, or he will just be
If
the
he was
biggest
naked,
nerd.
he'd be the coolest dude on the ship.
Make it Simon, coolest Simon.
Perilously close to that in this episode.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd rather die standing. It's a great line, and he
Right.
delivers it fantastically.
Perfectly.
Again,
Yeah.
throughout this episode, we see that him acting heroically might be through River's eyes.
Could
Yeah.
be.
Her
Yeah.
brother's a hero to her. And so
Sure.
maybe that is viewed somewhat through that.
Oh,
It
it's
could
so much
be.
rather believe that it isn't, though. It's so much rather
Yeah.
believe that this is just Simon.
Yeah.
There's
This
a
is
couple
just who
things
he
that
is
can't
now.
be when he then fights Jubal again later in the episode. That-
Sure, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Jubal questions the room. Is it actually her room if she's not in it? Does the object
Right.
have any use if it's
I
not
am
being used for its
such
purpose?
a sucker for this. And this connects back to the work that both Whedon and Tim Minear would do on Angel. This exploration of existentialism, this exploration of purpose and identity. This is my stuff. I love this. Though
So,
it's really
Alistair.
creepy and pacey and weird in this moment.
If River is not in her room, is it still her room?
I mean, yes, in the sense that it belongs to her, but is it defined by that purpose, or is it defined societally by convention? Is it defined by consensus? Is it River's room because River possesses that room, or is it River's room because everyone around River agrees that this is River's room?
Right.
Can Simon dictate the purpose and nature of this room?
I think mostly they just sleep in it, though, right?
We need a philosophy podcast with Sarah and Alistair, apparently. Sarah's just like, let me break this down, actually.
It does connect back to the gun earlier, I think,
Yeah,
which is
it definitely
really
does.
powerful. This idea that the substance of things is so interesting and so
Yeah.
sophisticated, and I'm not sure ultimately that the episode manages to land that
Right.
discourse.
Yeah.
No, well, they're trying to do a lot.
Yeah,
and
they
it's
are.
a short episode. And we have all of these established characters that now we're using to do this strange
Weirdly.
philosophical
Yeah.
Everyone
argument.
else feel right to you this week? Does everyone else feel as though they are themselves? Is it just Simon that's a little different, or?
I don't think so. We haven't gotten to it yet, but later when we get River kind of taking control of the situation and telling Mal and Zoe what to do, and then they just do it. No, River, you're crazy pants. Thanks, darling, but Mom and Dad are going to handle this.
Everyone, I mean,
Maybe Wash.
Wash seems pretty himself. I feel like Kaylee is pretty herself if we ignored the Kaylee and Simon flirting at the beginning. But even then, I mean, like Kaylee, if we remember Janestown, Kaylee was very flirty with Simon in Janestown after they had a couple of drinks and they were like somewhat snugly on that couch. I mean, like she fell asleep on top of him. Like she woke up
That's what I'm
on
saying.
top
They
of
have
him.
all this intimacy.
Which
and yet...
I think also Jane has played for the joke again in this episode because Jane's a man of action, ready to shoot things at the smallest beck and call, and yet here, noise after noise almost wakes him up and he just keeps rolling over and going back to sleep.
That's true.
Love that joke.
It's a good joke, though.
The dramatic sting as he tears down the blanket.
And then rolls back over to
I just don't
sleep.
know if I believe that Jane would just
It's
roll
one of
over
my
without
favorite
getting up and getting
things.
Vera.
Right.
And
And we
coming out.
we have to question Jubal Early here because he has no idea that Jane is going to sleep through this.
Oh, that's true.
He didn't even
Surely
check
he'd have to
incapacitate
take him
Jane.
out too.
Well, and we're
he
doing-
locked the rooms, I think. Was
Oh,
how
I
he
guess
took out
that's true,
Jane.
right.
Yeah, that's why Zoe and Wash
right,
hanging out and all that.
right.
But we also get like some interesting like time cuts here. Like we suddenly are just in Anara's shuttle with Jubal and Simon and Anara in there, but we don't see them entering at all. I don't know. It's like we just
Well, they talk about it, but they don't actually show them
right. It's like
going
okay,
in.
well, yeah. It's like we're going in here, but it's like we don't see them actually going. And anyway, I don't know. It was just we're making some weird little choices just throughout. I feel like, and it's strange and.
And that's true even on the shot level because we'll get these weird moments where we'll stutter a few frames forward.
Yeah.
So even individual shots will feel fractured, will feel somewhat
This
disassociated.
whole episode, if it is supposed to be somehow like from River's POV, it makes sense that none of this stuff is making sense because nothing in River's POV is going to make sense because she is so
I do like that
fractured
better.
and stripped. And so, I think that might have to be what fixes this episode for me.
Fair enough.
No, like when you watch this, you are River. You are experiencing all
Okay.
of this on a psychic level.
Well, Jubal ties back the room to the plan, saying it's not the plan to kill someone, but he will if he has to, and he'll also do things to Kaylee if he has to. I don't like it.
Do not like.
But I do like that Simon there is more stern and more like, okay, let's do this. I have to protect her. I have to do this. He's like first protecting his sister, now he's protecting Kaylee. And also, Jubal points out, you could overtake me at some point, so come show me. Let's go look.
That is such a fantastic villain monologue.
Yeah, like you
Of course you're going to come
yeah.
with me. Of course you're going to help me because you think you're going to have a chance. You think
Right.
you're going to have your moment.
It's perfect.
I do like that. That's really good.
Simon sees book on the floor, tries to help him. He's fine. Early says that's not a shepherd. The two go through the ship.
good.
Simon explains how River was tortured. And Jubal says, well, you should have been shot or stabbed because you're a surgeon. You should have to experience that type of pain.
I actually kind of like that. We should make doctors wait in waiting rooms for like an hour and a half.
Yes. And DMV employees.
Guys, the DSV is not that bad anymore. So much of that stuff has been like, made quicker now.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't been in a
I'm
while.
glad to hear it. I have to go register my car like next week, so I'm
good.
glad to hear it.
And then Jubal philosophizes here. People don't appreciate the substance of things, objects in space.
Firefly's a good design. I like that.
Simon thinks he sees his opening, but Jubal just points the gun behind them right in Simon's face and says, now's
This
not
is
your
a-
moment,
Okay.
doctor.
This is a good moment. I like this.
Yeah,
Yep.
Whedon has a mastery of this kind of moment, but this is one of my favorites in his entire body of work. This is not your moment, Doctor, is the greatest.
Yeah.
This, though, is one of those moments that makes me wonder about the connection between Early and River, because we really lampshaded River's ability to wield a gun without looking. She
Oh,
closed
yeah.
her eyes
Yeah.
when she killed the guys at the end of
Yeah.
War Story. We told that story, and here, Early isn't looking at Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whedon mentions in the
That's
commentary that Jubal is supposed to be at least partially psychic or as close to psychic without being psychic.
Yeah.
But they don't really get that in the episode except for just reading moments like this and guessing at it.
Hang on, wait. Do you think that Jubal was a part of some? I mean, he says that he's not Alliance, but was he a part of some? Like one of their
Maybe
like
he was part of
the
an
same kind
experiment
of
at
program
some
that they were
point.
trying to put River through.
Because
like, is
wasn't
he
right
like
as
an
a kid,
early
maybe got sent off to
prototype?
something like this.
Is this like
I
a
like
Peter
that.
Wiggins situation where they're like, no, he's actually too evil. We can't have him.
Yeah.
We need someone else.
Yeah.
It's a deep cut, ladies and gentlemen.
think
But
so,
Ender's
yeah.
Game is very
Oh my
important
gosh,
to me.
I loved that. I got it
I do
though.
like that idea. He's obviously not as powerful as River and can't do the things that she can do, but maybe he does have a little bit
He
of that.
feels as though he's on the same spectrum, though. He
Yeah.
feels as though he's not to be.
Sure.
Okay. I inadvertently used the diagnostic word
That's
when
okay.
I didn't mean to. But yeah, he feels as though he's part of that same shared experience, which
Right.
makes it curious.
Right.
Yeah.
Possibly.
He's got a little bit of
like
the
that.
shine.
I think we passed it already, but what do we make of that interaction about whether or not he is a bounty hunter?
Oh, yeah, where he says, that's not it at all. I'm a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
That was right after the lion.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm still reeling from that. I was like, hang on, what? Like, this is why are we in Wonderland
I
right
feel
now?
like it's one of those, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, no, I am a bounty hunter, but it's deeper than that. But it's weird.
Right.
I don't know.
I was watching it again today. I was trying to determine, okay, is Jubal putting a different emphasis on it? Is it because like
He says
Simon
it almost
says
the
it
same
with
way.
disdain,
Yeah.
or and then is Jubal replacing it and being like, "There's no disdain here. This is just a job." Like you
might
should. I
be.
mean, because
Yeah.
he
Could
talks
be.
later about how like I have a code. I think that there's a sort of honorability or nobility to that. Like what or is it just Joss Whedon doing the Joss Whedon thing and being a little bit self-indulgent?
There's also a potentially prosaic explanation. Is Jubal Early just kind of hard of hearing? Does that explain everything in the episode?
Oh, maybe the psychic thing is maybe he heard something different from Simon. He heard what Simon's saying when he goes, listen, I'm a bounty. He's like, what are you, a horrible monster? of
What
a
are you,
person
a
who wants to hurt
killer?
people?
Yeah, a
He's like,
monster,
I'm a
yeah.
bounty hunter. So maybe he heard something completely
I like
wrong.
that.
I like
That's
that too.
good. Okay.
Rivers.
A hard of hearing psychic. I'm into it.
All right. So, rushing through. They're now in Anara's shuttle, and Early says, I'm not going to waste time threatening you. I know that you understand. I will hurt people if I need to. And Anara does that thing where she says, I know you're tired. And then Early slaps her in the...
He just backhands the hell
They're
out of
good.
her.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but it's...
I
Yeah.
quite enjoy this scene, actually.
It's a good scene. I don't like watching a man hit a woman like
No,
that.
of course
No,
not. No, we
not
don't like
good.
that. But I think that what Anara is attempting to do is brilliant. It's absolutely playing.
Yes.
I think that Anara is probably mostly herself in this episode. Again, presumably, if
Okay,
we're
yeah.
in River's POV, maybe because River and Anara have not spent a whole lot of time together, and River doesn't have quite as good of a hold on Anara psychically. Anyway, but Anara is, doing the thing that she has been trained to do, and Early picks up on that immediately and punishes her for that. And it's dark, and this is scary. And he did not have to resort to an explicit threat of rape or anything to it. He was just like, you know that I'm dangerous, and I'm going to seal you in here. And I prefer this scene much more to the
Yes.
scene with Kaylee
Yeah.
earlier.
Yep, I
Even
agree.
with the direct physical violence.
Right.
And I wonder to what degree we're supposed to understand here that Early is struggling to find his own substance, is struggling to understand himself. He's looking out at the world around him and looking at the nature of things. Because in some fundamental way, he is not looking at himself, is not understanding himself.
Oh, sure.
I hate the way that Inara is shot right
Yeah.
at the end of the scene. We get 2 brief shots of her on the bed with her legs kind of curled under her. This might be the first time in the entire series that Inara is shot in such a way as we highlight and accentuate her vulnerability.
Oh,
Would she still stay in that pose after a man has entered her shuttle and started threatening her? I don't think so.
I don't think
she
so
would be
either.
sitting up at least, if
Yeah.
she, even still sitting down.
Particularly because the second shot is as Early as closing the door. So the immediate threat at least is over.
Well,
And she's
if
still there,
she
stricken.
may remain in that position if only while Early still has his eyes on her, if only to like not provoke him into either hurting her further
Oh,
or
sure.
hurting Simon.
Game there,
And then
yeah.
as soon as he's gone and the door shut, then maybe she, I don't know, takes a sponge bath real quick. We don't really see Inara for the rest of the episode.
I'm feeling pretty bad about Nara on the heels of Heart of Gold and the crying scene too.
Yeah.
I'm not really
Yeah.
feeling that we have. I feel as though we've lost some of Inara's strength.
Yes.
and some
we
of that,
have,
that
absolutely.
absolutely indomitable core that she has.
And we get that Jubal catchphrase. Does that seem right to you when he talks about man being stronger than woman, and yet she's the only one that can create a child?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No time.
Yeah, no
Mother
time.
issues,
No time.
mother issues happening right there.
Finally, on the bridge of the ship, Jubal starts talking to River by just shouting out, saying that he's going to shoot Simon if she doesn't show herself. River's voice echoes through, saying that she's no longer on the ship because they didn't want her there. She melted away. The crew, locked in the room, even aside from Jane, awake to hear what River is saying. And she tells Jubal that he is talking to Serenity, and Serenity is very unhappy. And we get our Act 3.
So, do you guys remember the first time you ever saw this episode? Mm-hmm. Did you think that River had become the ship?
No.
No.
I did.
I think I did a little bit at least.
Yeah, no, I totally
At least
did.
the point of I didn't understand what was going on and was willing to just go with what she was saying at that
Yeah,
point.
well, that's me with every bit of fiction I've ever been exposed to.
Oh,
you know, they're
sure,
like,
yeah.
this is what it is. And I go, okay, all right then.
I like the idea of River psychologically becoming the ship, of identifying herself
Sure.
as Serenity and taking responsibility for these people within her. This really powerful language throughout this entire sequence. I like that physically or science fictionally becoming the ship. No.
Yeah.
But, not
Well,
impossible.
I like what you just said there, Alistair, again, especially if we're talking about this episode being so deep in like River's POV, then like we are inside of River's point of view, inside of her mind, and all of these people are also inside of that, and so in that way she is Serenity because we are inside of this mind ship where everyone
the
else
mind
is
ship.
just flying around objects in space.
River's Mind Ship is my favorite 70s prog rock album.
So we come back into our Act 3. Kaylee lies tied up in the engine room still. River talks to her, though, apparently just to her, and that the rest of the ship can't hear.
Right.
And it's almost like an echoey voice at first before it becomes the comm radio voice, which I like. Then she's hearing that personal voice. And she's comforting Kaylee.
Is it the
telling her-
comms, or is she talking to everyone in their head?
Exactly. I think that's what that's supposed to make you question.
I
We've
didn't
never
think of
seen,
that.
to the best of my recollection, we've never seen the comms on Serenity work like this.
Right.
It's true. We certainly
Absolutely not.
haven't.
And especially because she's in a totally other ship. She's not even like using Serenity's comms.
She would have to have a really good knowledge of how to work that sort of thing too.
Which she does, or we can speculate that she
Oh,
does.
sure. Yeah, she can rattle off, the ID number of
Yeah.
Serenity, and
That's
even Mal
true.
can't do that.
But I like the idea that there's something more. Yeah.
Me too. Me
I
too.
like-
That's good.
River comforting Kaylee, telling her to be brave.
Yeah.
There's one thing she needs her to do, that she can get a tool and cut herself free. And then we cut back to Jubal and Simon on the bridge, and Jubal questions Simon, but Simon responds, I can't keep track of her even when she's not incorporeal possessing the ship.
Don't look at me. Which again, he's just so cool in this episode.
so cool.
I like him. I don't know him, but I like him.
I don't know who this guy is. You should keep him on your crew, though.
Guy, though.
And,
Yeah.
and then you get that
Promotion.
haunting laugh from River afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, that was
And Jubal's like, that's unsettling.
And then she starts talking about Jubal's mother and says that he's a liar and his intentions aren't honorable,
Right.
that he hurts people and not just for the job. And then Jubal tries to get Simon to be his advocate here. He's like, tell him I'm okay. He's like, he's very gentle and fuzzy. We're becoming fast friends.
right.
And the laugh again.
Yep, the laugh
Seeing that
again.
River recognizes Simon and understands what it is that he's doing. That's
Right.
it's such an intimate moment between these two because we don't get the joking, relationship between them
Right.
very
Well,
often.
his sister's a ship. They had a complicated childhood.
Well, we get Jubal Early saying that he does live by a code, though, which we see so much of that in this show. So many people, we just did Rance Burgess with his
Yeah,
code that he
right,
had.
right.
And of course, we talk all the time about Mal and his internal compass.
and we're about to find out that Jubal may believe he lives by a code, but he doesn't.
Right.
His code is pain. And
But
he
that-
likes pain.
yeah.
That is a code, though. I mean, Niska's code is pain.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's true.
If you're the only one making your rules,
Then you get to make up whatever the rules
that's
are.
right. Oh, and you will always be righteous in your own eyes. And
Yeah. At this point, River goes quiet, and Jubal calls to her, River, River, and then Serenity?
which
I
was so
love
cool.
that.
Genuine
No, it's so
confusion.
good.
He's like,
Yeah.
"Am I-
What is the
happening?"
nature of the thing?
What is the
this
nature
in front
of
of
the
me?
thing? Wow.
Now Mal wakes up in his room and starts asking questions. River's like, I know you have questions. And Mal says, that's why I'm asking them. Which I do like that back and forth there. And River says, there isn't time, Captain. I need you to trust me. And Mal apparently is willing to trust her. He's
I
a little
love
unsettled, but
the eye roll that he gives her,
and then
though.
she says, don't make faces.
Don't make
and he's
faces.
Like, what?
So damn good. Which I think
is
is
good.
more evidence that she is not talking through the comms. She is talking
I like
directly
that.
into people's
Absolutely.
brains.
Oh, that's
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
I do like that a
That's
lot.
a good little.
That's
That's,
great.
a nice little clue there.
We see Kaylee making her way to unlock the rooms, barely avoiding the sight of Jubal, who's looking down from
Oh
the
gosh,
bridge.
Kaylee, you're so brave. My brave
Yeah.
girl. My sweet baby
Especially
brave
after all
girl.
of
I like
that,
her
it takes a
agency
lot.
again
Yeah.
now. It does.
And she is so quick, and she's great at this. Jubal talks about an arsonist little person, and again, does that seem right to you? I'm a
Don't
little
like
weirded
it.
out by this. This Whedon says is his favorite part that he wrote, and I don't
What?
understand that. But in the comment there, he's like, "I love this part. I'm just gonna be silent. Let you guys listen. Yeah, it's so good. I love it." And I'm like,
Is that sarcasm?
I don't know. I don't
Does he just,
know.
does
But I
he just
hope so.
really
I
like the
don't know.
line "Little man loved fire"?
I
It was
would
just
not-
like super proud of himself for that.
It's entirely possible. I would not put it past Whedon to be
Right.
trolling his audience by saying that
bad
this
joke.
really poorly constructed little sequence here is his favorite part. I don't know.
Okay.
Kaylee succeeds in unlocking the room.
Whistling past.
Zoe and Wash get ready for River's plan as she reminds them, no guns.
Which
I
again,
like, but-
I like that, except that Zoe seems like she's like, oh, well, okay then. Which,
Aw.
no, she would not. She would be like,
To
yeah,
be
okay,
fair,
honey.
Never before has she had someone psychically telling her a plan over the whole ship when she was locked down.
Psychically telling her, or
or
psychically
persuading even.
persuading?
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
all
We're
right.
moving into a little bit like, oh, Little River is very talented.
We are imbuing so much onto this
I don't know,
episode.
I like
We
that
have
Mal's
to.
trusting a little bit. This is part of his crew, and he's like, all right, I'm going to listen to you. We'll see what happens here.
There's also the sense in which River is borrowing, I think, the authority of Serenity.
Oh, yeah.
That she is borrowing
like
that
that.
voice and that presence.
And she seems to be in control, whereas none of them have any control. They're all locked in their
Right,
rooms. and
exactly.
So it might
Well,
be a little
and-
bit easier to go along with somebody that does have control.
To skip ahead a little bit, whenever we see Mal and River on the outside of Serenity, and Mal's like, go give your brother a thrashing for ruining your plan, it's entirely possible that after River says no guns, she tells them, no, this is the
Right.
actual plan. I'm
She
going to
is
get him on
probably
the
telling them,
outside.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
We
what
as the
we're
audience
missing.
don't see that,
Right.
but
That's
it's entirely
fair.
possible that River said, no guns, this is what we're doing.
Exactly, yes. And we see Jubal just sitting on the bridge. The lights go out. You see Mal moving in the far distance. Did you guys catch
Ah. Yeah.
that? I love
Oh,
that
yeah,
part where
yeah.
he just moves down the hallway in the far distance.
Whedon controls these spaces better than
Very
any
well.
other director in
Yeah.
the series. It's
Yeah.
just fantastic.
Mal heading off to find a spacesuit,
Right.
or Nathan Fillion stumbling onto the set really quick. Either way.
Where did I put my milkshake?
River tells Jubal that he isn't welcome here, that he likes to inflict pain, that his mother knew, saw the darkness in him, and tells the
Yeah.
story of him torturing a dog as
Yeah.
a child. We see that Whedon intercuts this scene with Jubal, Brooks playing Jubal here, reacting to this in two different ways. One, straight face, which is the majority of it, but then cutting to these overreactions, these extreme reactions
Yeah.
to the story. And I really like that this is what she's seeing inside of him as he's trying to play it cool.
Yeah.
It's the
Right.
same visual language that was established right at the beginning of the episode as she's getting the flashes of the crew. you know?
Yes.
Right. Jubal realizes that River is on his ship, and we cut to see her laughing in his cockpit.
Such a good reveal.
It is a good reveal.
It is
Yeah.
really excellent. Really well done there. Yeah.
River tells him to put the gun away, and he says he is, and Simon says, no, he's not, which I just love.
Yep. Then we're all reasonable people. Also, no, you're not.
You're not. Jubal does put the gun away. River says, you're not right, you're not righteous, you've got issues.
I love that. You're not right. You're not righteous. That was very good. That's good writing. That's good Whedon.
Yeah.
River says she will go with him, though, that she's dangerous and the crew
Yeah.
would be better without her. That she speaks truthfully what she feels, even though we will find out that she has a plan and she doesn't fully mean it. This
Right.
is what she's feeling from the crew and from what she's heard. Simon won't stand for this and attacks Jubal, but Jubal shoots him in the leg and River screams. Act 4.
Yeah.
Jubal tells Simon, see, that's what it feels like.
Now I have a question. How did Psychic River not see Simon getting shot?
Because it's all fragmented, it doesn't work like that.
Well, she did.
Oh,
That's why
okay.
she screamed when he got shot. Oh, see it in the coming.
In the
though.
Yeah.
future, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, she felt it when it happened.
I thought
I
about this. I
don't
think when I
think-
was watching it, I think she just was so focused on her plan and that everything was going to go fine that she didn't even think about it.
It all comes down to the wardrobe. If Simon had been wearing his vest, he wouldn't have
true.
taken on Jubal Early.
That's
She
right.
had no way of knowing that
She
he would
had
be
no way of
shirtless
knowing.
and badass.
Yeah. Well, and also
Episode title.
shirtless and
Shirtless and
badass.
badass. I like it.
There may be a difference between, whenever we use the word psychic, it's like, oh, well, that person can see the future, whatever. But there's a difference between like precognition and then just like being able to like read people's minds
which
in
I
the
think is what
present
she-
That is
and
true.
affect
And she
it.
can read them so well that she can sometimes know what they're about to do.
Yeah.
And here she reads Simon so well that she thinks that he's going to go along with the plan, but she underestimates how much her brother loves her and is
Oh,
not willing for her to
right.
go away with this man.
I do like that.
And so she doesn't catch that. And so I like that Simon jumps up and then
He
gets
takes
shot,
so
and
much
then
looking
he
after.
jumps, as Jubal is leaving down the stairs, he comes running and leaps out of the stairs, having been shot in the leg. He's
Yeah.
not enough.
Simon ain't stopping.
No, he's like, that's my sister. You have to put me down before
Right.
you can get to her. And Jubal does, knock him down, at least exhausts him onto the stairs, and then makes his escape onto the outside of the ship. You made the right move. Best for you to go on with me. And Mal says, think so. And we see that he's standing behind Jubal and says, some of us feel differently, and shoves Jubal out into space, bouncing
Yep.
him off his own ship.
Which is precisely what he deserves.
Yep.
Yes.
A very Mal move.
Yes.
I like it.
And River exits Jubal's ship, floats down the Mal with a big smile on her face.
Very daddy-daughter
which Whedon
moment.
mentions that this was a great acting moment here because that suit apparently was actually kind of painful.
Oh, really?
Her showing that joy was probably really hard to do after being in it for such a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have that daddy-daughter moment where
Permission to come aboard?
Yeah.
I
Permission to
love
come
that.
you ain't
Yes.
quite right. It's a popular theory, and she's still smiling. They're both smiling
so
at each other.
cute.
Mal gives her a big, broad smile and says, "Go on, get in there. Give your brother a thrashing for messing up your plan." He takes so much looking after. We cut to
Mal
the-
as dad is the best thing.
It is
Yeah.
the best.
It really is.
Absolutely, and I love this scene and this moment here, and it just drives that point home, and everyone knows by now that that's my favorite part about this.
Yes,
series,
right.
Mal as dad. We cut to the infirmary. Simon instructing Zoe to remove the bullet from his leg. Wash, can I mop your brow? I'm at the ready with a fearsome brow mop, doing the best he can. To
Wash
support.
really was just himself throughout this episode. Yeah,
he was
yeah.
cute. Yeah.
Anara and Mal discuss Jubal's almost impossible survival chances.
Yeah.
Mal checks on Anara's lip, but she pulls away and leaves silently. Book and Jane discuss what happened as they start to work out together. Book obviously making up a bit more of a struggle than there was. And Jane being disappointed that he didn't get more action. We fade into River and Kaylee playing with Jax. And
Kaylee's telling just the most inappropriate story
Yeah.
ever.
It is, right? Yeah.
This
Like,
time that I accidentally. What, statutory rape? Is this what this was?
yeah,
What?
apparently it was statutory
We don't know
rape.
how old she
for sure. I
was.
mean, yeah, she
Yeah.
may have been like 16 or 7.
Turns
she,
out he
like,
was 14, but must have been genetically enhanced.
yeah,
What does that
What is-
mean?
I don't
Why are we
know.
telling this story?
It's a little weird.
Moving on.
But they are
River,
trying to
whistle
get-
past it.
they
I
are
was
trying to get the
disappointed it
point-
didn't involve facial hair. We have a pattern here.
We really don't. That's what I
We
thought
need
too.
a mustache story. This is
Yes.
a mustache story moment.
Yes.
Turned
Turned out he was 14 and the mustache.
Actually, that could be it. Maybe that was the genetic
that was the
enhancement.
genetic
Yeah, maybe
mustache.
we're the bad people. Yeah.
Right. And then Whedon mentions that this is him trying to show that Kaylee's back and she's not afraid of River anymore. And that now she trusts and accepts. And most of the crew here is now trusting and accepting. This was supposed to be the point where they realize, oh, she's one of us. We need to protect her. She's family.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be the turning point of this episode. And we get that zoom in of River holding that rubber bouncing ball. And she says, I can win this. And she zooms in on that rubber ball that she's holding. And it bounces down. We see that digital effect of it bouncing. And we zoom through the floors again and out into space. Serenity passes by in the distance. And we float until Early comes in the frame. And he says, well, here I am.
And hopefully he died there.
Yeah.
A miserable evil monster.
Canonically, he did not, but
Oh, nerds.
yes. Well, you don't highlight how impossible his chances of survival are
Without him
without
being
him
able to surviving?
somehow.
Okay, yeah.
It's a weird ending to the episode. I really love the scene with Kaylee and River.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
really
great.
love how playful Kaylee is with her. That relationship is fantastic. And
Yeah.
as much as we were talking earlier about wanting to see more Inara and River,
Yeah.
if we had to pair River up with someone, I'm glad it was Kaylee.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. Okay, so that is basically the episode. Kind of a weird end cap to this series. Like we were saying, I would be interested in watching the series again and putting this immediately behind War Stories and seeing how much more sense everything
we'll
else
work on
makes.
the Shindig
I'll do
order.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys like this episode more now after we've discussed it or less?
I think I like it more now after we've
Yeah,
discussed
me
it
too.
and had to attach a lot of meaning and understanding and stuff that wasn't quite there to things that were there.
Is it Joss Whedon's script if we're the ones talking about it, though?
Death of the author, my friend.
Indeed.
It's our script now.
That's right.
So let's geek out about this episode.
I love my captain.
What was your favorite part of this episode?
I love River's physicality in this episode.
Yeah,
I think it's
Summer Glau is
gorgeous.
amazing.
Yep.
She's so good.
Although that Peter and the Wolf kind of soundtrack too that they had going on was really beautifully done. So I guess those artistic choices.
Yeah. The beginning, whenever River is moving through, touching Serenity and experiencing all of the crew's feelings, all of that is my absolute favorite part. I love that. I personally feel like everything goes down from there.
Yeah. I love the daddy daughter moment at the end between
Of
Mel
course.
and River. And
Yeah.
of course, Simon's heroicism just before that, too.
He's pretty great. Yeah, I would take the bookmarks. I would take the daddy-daughter moment at the end. I would take the whole cold open. But since
Yeah.
those are already taken, I'm going to take the two interstitial scenes we get with Jane and Book. I love that relationship.
I do
Oh,
love
it's
their
really
simple
good.
that is.
Yeah.
And I think that Book would be really good for Jane in,
Yes.
in
Yeah.
due course.
Yep.
Who do you guys think gave the best performance this episode? Summer Glau?
This one I feel like it's hard to say because Brooks does play creepy really well.
Yeah, he
in-
does.
He
in
does do a
Jubal
really
Early.
good job, yeah.
And of course, Jewel State does scared really well.
Yeah.
And Summer Glau is just awesome throughout the whole thing, I think.
Yeah.
So
I have to go with Jewel Stady.
Yeah.
State. Have we ever figured out how to say her name?
It's Jewel State.
It is State.
State.
She
Sure.
said State is how
She
I learned
said
this
it.
about halfway through the podcast.
Whoa. Well, I
there
wish
you
you would
go.
have corrected me every time I said it.
Well, I don't think you've said it since then.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't
Well,
had the time.
all right. Well, Jewel State.
Yes, I'm going to
Kaylee.
go with her. Yeah, from the way that she delivered her the story of what had happened with River with the shooting, and she was so concerned and scared and trying to be brave and tell this story, and then gosh, everything with Jubal Early. Even though I hated that scene, she
Yeah.
was so good.
Yes.
She's fantastic.
I agree with Liz.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be Summer Glau.
Yeah.
And the performance, not just in the acting, but in the movement. That
physical
one
ballet.
shot as she bends down to inspect
Yes.
the stick, where we have her feet in the foreground of frame, and then her head just enters from the top at an impossible angle for a human being. You
Right,
guys.
right. But she
That should
actually
not be
can do that
possible.
in real life.
She's ethereal in exactly the right way throughout this episode.
Yeah.
This is why you cast Summer Glau for this part, and
Yeah.
she's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Guys, that's it.
All right.
2 minutes.
So that was the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much. We are skipping next week, which is Valentine's Day. So we're not going to do anything out on Valentine's Day. And then we are going to be doing Serenity, the movie, on February 21st. And yeah, Liz has to go to the airport, so we're skipping all of our usual outro stuff. So thank you guys for listening. I'm Sarah K. Bazant.
And I'm Liz Stevens.
And I'm Vinton Bain.
And I'm Alistair Stevens.
Don't let the space bugs bite.